Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to unpack a truly fascinating realization that actually came straight out of a recent London business trip. We're looking at what it really truly means to implement global tech systems across borders. If you think you know what digital transformation is, or if you kind of consider yourself a tech expert, this story might just completely flip your perspective on what actual digital transformation looks like in the real world. So, let's dive right in.
So when you hear the phrase full stack in the tech world, a very specific image usually pops into your head, right? We immediately think of a highly skilled developer who knows the whole shebang, everything from the front-end user interfaces to the back-end databases, the servers, and the APIs tying it all together. It's basically the ultimate technical badge of honor. You hold the keys to the entire technological kingdom. But, as you'll see from the story we're exploring today, there's actually a much deeper, vastly more valuable meaning to that phrase. It turns out, knowing the entire technology stack? Well, that might just be the baseline. The real magic happens when we completely expand what we consider the stack to be in the first place.
Section 1. The London Implementation Illusion. Okay, let's set the scene with what sounded like a pretty straightforward, everyday corporate mission. Imagine you've just returned from a big business trip to London. Your primary goal is to take a proven, heavily tested, completely functioning UK-based software system and bring it over to Japan. Now, the initial, and maybe somewhat naive assumption, was that introducing this foreign system simply meant reading the technical specs. You look at the requirements, check the functions, translate the UI, copy the code over, and deploy it on Japanese servers. I mean, it's just software, right? Just ones and zeros crossing an ocean. In theory, it should literally be a simple plug-and-play operation.
Section 2. Hitting the business wall.
Well, that plug-and-play simplicity? Total illusion. This is where the project hit a massive reality check. Almost as soon as the teams rolled up their sleeves and started digging into the requirements, an unscalable wall appeared. They quickly realized, wow, this simply will not work as is in Japan. And why is that? Because systems aren't just floating blocks of universal logic. They're direct, hard-coded reflections of a specific country's unique business rules. Think about it. A UK system is built entirely around UK tax laws, UK compliance, and UK privacy norms. So if the Japanese market requires, say, an extra layer of regulatory approval or a totally different sequence for verifying a client, a system built for London is going to completely break down in Tokyo. The fundamental business rules underlying the software just don't match up.
And to put that into perspective, this friction multiplies exponentially in a heavily regulated space, like the securities industry. It operates on this incredibly complex, multi-layered chain of command. First, you have regulatory authorities setting the baseline rules of the market. Then, the massive banks and major securities firms take those rules and translate them into their own huge corporate processes. Next, the smaller firms have to build their workflows to fit into those larger frameworks. And eventually, only at the very end of this chain are those rules passed down to the end customers. Every single step of this massive chain is completely different in the UK compared to Japan. The software is really just the final artifact of all these highly localized decisions.
So this incredibly complex reality proved a really vital point. You absolutely cannot understand the whole picture by looking at the system alone. Just staring at the technical specs of the UK system was completely useless for bringing it to Japan. Reading the code tells you exactly what the machine is doing, sure, but it doesn't tell you why it's doing it. It doesn't explain the local business rationale behind a specific line of code. If you've ever tried to force a rigid new software tool onto a team that has a totally different way of working, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've experienced a micro version of this exact same problem.
Because of this deep, fundamental mismatch, the actual flow of the implementation had to completely evolve. Think about the massive conceptual shift required here. Before anyone even typed a single line of code, the UK business rules had to be painstakingly adapted into Japanese business practices. They literally had to translate the corporate culture and regulatory logic first. Only after that conceptual translation was totally finished could the system itself even be touched. So, the flow isn't UK system directly to Japanese system. No way. It's UK business mapped to Japanese business, which is then mapped to the Japanese system. That transformation is absolutely crucial, and skipping it, well, that pretty much guarantees a failed launch.
Now, to make that incredibly complex mapping actually happen, you need a missing link. And we are just about to meet the remarkable people who solved this puzzle and acted as that link. But real quick, if you're finding this explainer helpful and enjoying the deep dive, please hit that good button and subscribe. It really helps us out so we can keep bringing you these breakdowns of fascinating topics. Okay, let's get back to our missing link.
Section 3. Beyond the full stack.
To bridge this massive gap, the project had to rely on a very unique, highly specialized group of people stationed in Japan. Some of them came over from London, others were hired locally. And just look at this absolutely incredible, rare combination of skills. These professionals didn't just know IT. They deeply understood English. They deeply understood Japanese. They understood the complex business architectures and regulatory environments of both countries. And, on top of all that, they completely understood the technical systems. I mean, they were the ultimate polyglots. They could sit in a room with stakeholders from vastly different backgrounds, articulate the profound differences between the two sides, and actually successfully connect them.
Honestly, seeing them work completely redefines the whole concept of full stack. It isn't just about knowing a front-end framework and a back-end database anymore. Going beyond full stack means being a living, breathing bridge between entirely different worlds. It's about connecting country to country, business to business, people to systems. Think about how incredibly valuable that is today. Anyone can sit down and learn a coding language, but having the empathy, the business acumen, and the technical vocabulary to merge two completely different global paradigms together, that is a literal superpower.
Section 4. The Future of DX.
Looking back at this extremely busy but absolutely fascinating new way of working, a really profound lesson emerged about what true digital transformation actually requires. The folks who create real, lasting value in digital transformation aren't just isolated tech geniuses coding away in a basement. And they aren't just traditional business experts sitting in a boardroom drawing charts, either. The true value creators are the ones who can translate the business itself across borders. When you're introducing an overseas system, just translating the language on the screen is a guaranteed path to failure. You have to translate the underlying business logic. In an era where AI can churn out basic code, this inherently human ability to translate complex, messy business realities into functioning technological systems, that is for sure the ultimate future-proof skill.
Ultimately, the most powerful capability for future digital transformation professionals really boils down to this exact idea: the ability to cross boundaries. It's not just about deepening your knowledge in one specific, narrow silo. It's about expanding your capacity to connect multiple silos together. It's kind of like being a bilingual diplomat in a room full of monolingual generals. The generals might have incredibly deep expertise in their own domains, but they literally cannot talk to each other without you. It's all about understanding different worlds, speaking different professional languages, and finding those hidden threads that can weave them all together seamlessly.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to think about your own career and your own day-to-day work. Think about the worlds that sit just outside your current area of expertise. It might be different departments in your company, maybe totally different industries, or even different cultural markets. What boundaries will you cross tomorrow? I encourage you to start exploring what lies just outside your comfort zone. Because as we've seen today, that boundary, that is exactly where the true full-stack magic happens. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.